Coming up on Marriage Today with Jimmy and Karen.
When Karen and I got married, I was verbally abusive and dominant. And I didn't know my wife. I didn't know my wife, but I had so hurt her through the things that I had said that she was covered with fig leaves. I mean, literally, she wasn't going to tell me about the sensitive areas of her life because, when I got mad, I would take advantage of it.
And I just would become this wall that you talk to, and I just thought, he's just going to tell me what to do all the time. So, and I remember that it took time though, and once I could see that you really meant it, and that you really did validate and care what I had to say, and that you really wanted me a part of the process. It did. I began to heal inside as well as outside, and I was able to, even be more intimate with you about things that I had never told you about before.
Marriage is about sharing. It doesn't matter if you have kids in common. It doesn't matter if you share the same house. It doesn't matter if you share a checkbook. Do you share life? Marriage is about sharing. And when the Bible uses the term for intimacy in marriage, it says one. Now here's what this means. Everything before you got married that you owned and administrated individually, now you do it together with no exceptions. It's our money, it's our time, it's our children, even from a blended family. And let me say this, one of the most important things in blended families is giving your spouse ownership of the children. And I'll say something else about that in just a minute. They may not be the biological parent, but they have to have full ownership. Anything that I will not give to you going into the relationship will create problems in our marriage. In fact, it creates jealousy. But here's the way that people violate the law of possession. One is dominance. Some people, and it's very common, in most marriages, there's a dominant partner, in most marriages. But dominance destroys the passion and intimacy of marriage. Men and women are totally equals in every way. Karen and I never discuss who the boss in our marriage is because Jesus Christ is the boss of our marriage. And we were totally equals. But when we first got married, I was dominant. You can be dominant through the force of your personality. You can be dominant through intimidation. In other words, you're going to pay a price if you cross me. You're going to pay a price if you speak your mind. You can be dominant through manipulation, but dominance is as common for men as it is women, and women as it is men. It's not a male issue or a female issue. It's a gender-neutral issue. But dominance simply means I'm not going to share it. It's mine. Basically, it's mine, and I'm going to control it. It's my kids, my money, my house, my schedule, whatever it is. And so, but it's always destructive. They've done studies on dominance, and it's always proven where you have dominance present in a relationship, and to the degree that you have dominance present, it lowers the satisfaction of the marriage because there's one spouse being dominated. They're not an equal. They're not sharing. They're being controlled, basically. Another problem with the law of possession is independence, is that I'm just going to do my own thing. I counseled a couple one time, and she said, well, he goes to that side of the house, and I go to this side of the house. And she said, I sit over here all night, and he sits over there all night in his office gambling. And she said, that's our marriage right there in a nutshell. And she had done everything she could to try to reach out to him. And I told him, I just said, marriage is about sharing. And he was independent. And marriage is brutal on selfish people. Marriage is not about independence. Marriage is about interdependence. If you want to be independent, stay single. But even if you're single, you're not independent. You need God. We're dependent upon God. Independence and selfishness destroys a marriage. Interdependence. I need you. I didn't get married so I could live alone on that side of the house. I got married so I could share my life with someone. Another problem with the law of possession is protection. And I'm going to go back to the blended family issue just a minute. I've counseled a lot of blended families where they get together and there's children from a previous marriage. Maybe they didn't want the marriage. Maybe they don't trust the spouse or whatever. I counseled one couple in particular. He had no authority over the kids. And it's typically better, especially when the family is new, when the marriage is new, if the biological parent does the discipline. That's typically better. It just makes sense that if, they're my biological children, I'll do the discipline. But the non-biological parent has to have full authority to discipline if necessary and to protect themselves. And some people say, listen, they've been through a hard time and I just don't want to do that. In fact, one woman said to me, I don't trust him with the kids. And I said, in other words, you trusted him with your life to marry him, but you don't trust him with your children? And what happened was he was in the home and he was a fair target. These kids were coming after him every day with actions and words that was ruining the quality of his life. And he said, I can't take it anymore. And I turned to her and I said, listen, he's got to have ownership of your children. And she said, I won't. I won't. There are no exceptions to this. And this is an interesting scripture. This is 1 Corinthians 7. It says, let the husband render to his wife the affection due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. This is so profound that the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 7 is saying, when you get married, you actually give authority sexually of your body over to your spouse. This is not a license for abuse. This is just a license for use. And what this ensures is the fact that I'm not going to use my body against you or as a weapon or as a bargaining chip. This is not my body. This is your body to take care of your needs. And that is the spirit of marriage, the way God designed it. They too shall become one flesh. And protection. I'm not going to protect the kids from you. I'm not going to protect the money from you. We're partners. We're going to make all of our decisions together. You establish the law of possession in your marriage by asking your spouse's input on every decision and never making a decision without your spouse. And never making your spouse pay a price for telling you the truth. The spirit of a good marriage is we're partners here. We may be different. We may have different money languages. We may have different needs. We may have different perspectives, but that just makes us better. That just makes us stronger. I'm not going to make a decision without your input. And our relationship is more important than the issues. We share everything. The word my destroys marriages. It's our children. It's our schedule, it's our home, it's our money. Prenuptial agreements are a death sentence to a relationship. A prenuptial agreement basically just says, I'm not going to give you this. I don't trust you with this. And if we divorce, I don't want to lose the aquarium in my Volkswagen. And the aquarium and the Volkswagen then become this despised object in the home that your spouse knows. They love that more than they love me. He said, what if we get a divorce? It's going to hurt really bad and you're going to lose a lot. So you better work at your marriage. Listen, is it any surprise that things end badly when you've planned the end from the beginning? When you get married, we say these words, till death do us part. We're going to work hard at our relationship and we're going to learn about marriage because this is till death do us part. We're going to be happy or we're going to be two old, miserable people. But we're not getting out of this thing. We're going to stay committed to it. There's one other law of marriage, it's the law of purity. It says the man and his wife were both naked and unashamed. And this is before the fall. This is before sin entered the Garden of Eden. Isn't it wonderful that God, by the way, the word Eden means pleasure and delight. God created marriage in a place that means pleasure and delight. And He created Adam and Eve naked. Isn't that phenomenal? Isn't that just great? They were naked. I mean, you think about how God created marriage, it was great. And so they were naked until the fall. And you remember after the fall, the first thing that happened is they put on fig leaves. And they began to hide from each other. Now listen, they put the fig leaves on their genitals, which are the areas where you're different and you're most sensitive. Those are the most sensitive areas of your body. What's the point? When you're living your marriage in purity, you can expose your differences and you can talk about all the sensitive areas of your marriage without a problem. But when you have sin in your marriage and you're sinning against each other, you cannot trust each other and you have to hide your differences and your sensitivities. When Karen and I got married, I was verbally abusive and dominant. And I didn't know my wife. I didn't know my wife, but you know, I had so hurt her through the things that I had said that she was covered with fig leaves. I mean, literally, she wasn't going to tell me about the sensitive areas of her life because, you know, when I got mad, I would take advantage of it. And I was just insensitive. When I repented in living in purity, the law of purity just simply means this: I have to be careful about what I do because everything I do affects you. And when I make a mistake, I have to take responsibility for it. Those are two things I didn't do. I wasn't careful, and I'd never said I was sorry. And I didn't know my wife. We didn't have intimacy. We had sex. She was good about meeting my sexual needs, but we didn't have any intimacy in sex because we didn't know each other. We didn't talk on any deep level. I went to Karen and I asked her for her forgiveness when I hung my golf clubs up and when the Lord began to change my heart. I asked for her forgiveness, and she forgave me. And she said, Jimmy, you really wounded me with your mouth. And I said, I understand that, Karen. I said, I'm sorry, and I ask you to forgive me. And so the fig leaf started coming off her. And she began, it didn't happen overnight, but you know, after several weeks and several months, I noticed that she began to tell me things I didn't know. And one day she was talking to me and she told me something, and I said, well, how long has that been going on? She said, well, years. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me that before? And she said, I couldn't trust you. But today the sister's naked. And life is good. Life is real good. But, you know, you can live in the same house, but if you got a mouth on you, if you hurt my feelings and you're disrespectful to me and you're sarcastic and you're critical and you won't take responsibility for it, you think, my heart is a holy of holies, and it's a sensitive place in all of us. All of us are more sensitive than we would want to admit. I cannot trust my heart of hearts to somebody who won't take responsibility for their behavior. When you're careful in the way that you treat each other and when you take responsibility for your mistakes, the fig leaves come off. And when it says the man and his wife were both naked and unashamed, it meant mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, they could talk about anything without shame. No shame. I'm not afraid in any way that you will reproach me because I trust you. You're my safe place. You're my safe place. So your spouse, we should be each other's safe place, where I will be careful, and if I do something wrong, I'll take responsibility for it. But remember, blame transfer was the original sin of marriage. God came to Adam and said, Adam, what is this that you've done? He said, it's her fault. Eve, what is this that you've done? Devil made me do it. I honestly believe if they would have taken responsibility for their issues, that God would have had a different response to them. I really do. What we have right now in our full Marriage on the Rock seminar is the fullest and most complete and most updated seminar that I've ever done, and it includes the issue now of blended families, the most important issue in marriage, the 4 foundational laws of marriage, how to understand and meet your spouse's needs, finances, sex, in-laws, all of those kinds of things are covered in Marriage on the Rock. Right now, for your gift of any amount to support the ministry and mission of Marriage Today, we go across America and all over the world helping people succeed in marriage and helping little children stay together with their parents, helping people to achieve their dreams and to keep the nightmare of divorce and family problems from happening. And so if you would support us right now, we'll send you a CD single called The Most Important Issue in Marriage. And it is the most important issue in marriage. It's the most important marriage teaching you'll ever hear, I promise, for your gift of any amount. For your gift of $50 or more, we're going to send you the full 10-part audio series, Marriage on the Rock, all the teachings included, with the Marriage on the Rock book also. For your gift of $110, I know some of you, $50 would be a sacrifice for you, $20 would be a sacrifice. Some of you can give $110, and for that, we'll send you the DVD series. All 10 sessions on DVD, plus the Marriage on the Rock book, and plus a bonus book, Happy, Happy Love, which gives you the secrets of how to stay in love. We want you to get these important resources. Here's how you can do it.
Marriage on the Rock, the best-selling book and series, is the essential resource to having the marriage of your dreams. Through this power-packed series, marriage expert Jimmy Evans will show you how to deal with real-life challenges and offer easy-to-understand solutions that will transform your relationship. Jimmy will address all the major issues a couple will encounter, like communication, finances, sex, kids, his and her needs, blended families, and much more. For your gift of any amount, you'll receive the CD single, The Most Important Issue in Marriage. For your gift of $50 or more, we'll send you the Marriage on the Rock book and CD series. For your gift of $110 or more, you'll receive the book and DVD series, plus the Passion Reigniting Happy, Happy Love book. Discover God's design for your dream marriage. Whether you've been married for years or just preparing for the journey, experience Marriage on the Rock today.
Love in our society has become a very fickle thing. Fewer and fewer people are being married because many people don't understand it. Many people fear it. God has a plan for marriage, and every person can succeed in marriage. This is about helping us to have a better future and helping us to build a family that will last.
If you will press into God, you will make it in your marriage. I mean, you will. I'm just saying, you will.
What does the Bible say? If any two on earth touch as agreeing, it'll be done for them. Husbands and wives, pray like never before for the blessing of God to break out in your marriage.
Would you be the person to build a family that lasts? When we got married, I didn't know that there were laws related to marriage. You know, laws like the physical laws of the universe. There are spiritual laws. You know, God never creates anything to fail or to be confusing. And I was completely confused about marriage. Karen, both of us were. And I didn't know that, you know, there were things that I could understand that would help me, you know, to make sense out of marriage. But the laws of marriage, and we're talking about the law today of possession, which means that we share everything, and the law of purity, which means that we can only be intimate in a careful environment, in an environment of responsibility. Adam and Eve were naked without shame, the Bible says, until they sinned, then they put fig leaves on each other. And so we were divided, Karen, and we had, I wounded you, and we did not have intimacy because of that environment. So I talked about that in the teaching. Now we have some questions from our viewers.
My husband and I have hurt each other so deeply that it is difficult to talk. We aren't close in any way, and how can we be happy?
Well, I would first of all say, you know, we were at a point, Karen, that we should have gone for help. And we did get a little bit of help. Some people...
No, actually, the people I asked for help were having worse marriages than we were. So it was like, okay, how do we get out of this?
We barely made it. But I would say, first of all, if you're just at a place you can't talk, go get help. Find someone. But the first is, we're talking about purity here because there's no intimacy. You can't talk. We couldn't talk about money. We couldn't talk about sex. We couldn't talk about golf. You know, a lot of the things we couldn't talk about. I mean, it was just, these were nuclear issues, radioactive issues in our relationship. The first thing is you have to take responsibility. And rather than finger pointing at your spouse, you need to humble yourself and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way that I've talked to you. I'm sorry for the way that I've wounded you. And you have to stop it.
And even if the other person doesn't jump in and say, me too, you still need to own your own as far as, you know, asking for forgiveness and anything that you've done.
Well, when our marriage changed, I repented for how I talked to you. Because I had deeply wounded you with my mouth. And the morning I woke up after that, I didn't love you emotionally, and you didn't love me emotionally. It was a commitment that we had because we were wounded. I was numb. I mean, I was ready to get out of the marriage the day before, but I knew that it was wrong, and I knew that I didn't want you to leave. Okay, but I didn't know how to love you. Well, the next day I woke up after I had said I was sorry. I had to start walking it out because I just couldn't walk up to you and say, "Now, doggone it, you trust me." And after all the beating up I'd done, is that verbally. I couldn't just walk up and demand it, so I had to earn it.
Well, and I was waiting to see if it was really for real.
That's right.
You know?
And it was. And so daily, once you repent, daily you walk that out and you're different. Now, again, it's not like, well, okay, I said I'm sorry, now you say you're sorry. I'm not asking anything from you. I'm taking responsibility for my behavior, and I'm going to prove that I'm different. And again, if you have to get help, go get help. Getting help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. So get help if you need it, but say you're sorry, don't wait on your spouse to do it. And even if you're only 10% of the problem, you take responsibility for your 10%. You can tell them what they've done wrong, but then let God be the enforcer. Don't you bully them or browbeat them until they change. Let God be the enforcer. He's big enough to change them, but you take responsibility for your own behavior, and what happens is it begins the healing process.
I agree.
In the relationship. Your humility, you reap what you sow. And so when you fight fire with fire, you get a bigger fire. But when you fight it with water, an opposite spirit, you put it out.
That's good. Okay, next question is, we have separate checking accounts, and it has always worked fine for us. Is this okay?
As long as it doesn't communicate separateness.
Yeah.
Okay, because, you know, Karen, we manage our money together, okay, but you pay the bills. You manage the checkbook. I have to beg you for money.
Oh my gosh.
It's humiliating. I'm tired of it,
sure.
and I want to confront you right here.
Oh my gosh.
No, the point being, we talk about what we do and we do it together. Separate bank accounts are horrific when two people are living two separate lives. I have my money, and this is what some couples say. I have my money, and you have your money, and you do with your money what you want, and I'll do with my what I want. That's terrible. Marriage is about sharing, and sharing means we talk about it. What we do together. And so there's nothing specifically wrong with having separate accounts as long as you own everything together, you manage everything together, and there's not this sense of mine and yours.
And I think it's important that you know what each other has. I mean, I've always been concerned about women who don't know about their finances and they just trust the man to do it all and they don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's so dangerous because, you know, we don't know the future as far as, you know, how long we're all going to be here. But I think for a woman needs to know. I mean, yes, her husband can handle it, but I think she needs to know what's going on in the home. She needs to know what the finances are. Same with the man. I mean, you know what's going on with finances. I don't just do it. You're very aware of how much we have and what goes out and what comes in. And so I think that's part of the sharing too, is, you know, have the information and don't just, you know, well, I don't want to do it, so just let him do it. You know, still, I think it makes a man feel important too, when you want to be a part of that, whatever he is, that he's doing.
Well, when you don't feel like you're a part of it, it's humiliating.
Yeah.
And you feel like the money is more important. And, you know, Karen, we know couples that completely control each other through money.
Yeah.
And through ignorance. You know, we know women that don't know one single thing about the finances of their home, and that's empowering to their husband and disempowering to them. Even if your spouse manages the assets, you know, pay the bills, stuff like that, knowledge is empowering. And just like you said, Karen, you never know who's gonna die or, you know, whatever. And so we need to both manage it together, but the joy of marriage is sharing.
Yes.
You know, when we share our marriage, it just means we're talking about things, you know, we're talking about our values, we're talking about our future and those type of things. So our encouragement to you is manage your money together. Now, again, I want to go back and say these questions that we're answering, we selected these questions because they fit with today's topic. And one of them was on sharing and the other one was on taking responsibility for your behavior. The two laws of marriage that we're talking about today is first the law of possession. God says they two shall become one, okay? And in our society today, there's so much individualism, is we share everything. Marriage is about sharing. Everything that I have belongs to you, even if it's a child from a previous marriage. Now we're gonna share everything together. And the law of purity just simply says, I've got to take responsibility for my behavior and be careful if we're gonna be able to be completely exposed mentally, emotionally, physically to one another without being, you know, afraid of one another because of sin that we won't take responsibility for. Big, big issues. Those are laws of marriage that God stated thousands of years ago that support as laws the marriage relationship. Now, we're going to come back in just a minute. We have more program, but right now we want to ask you to stand with us financially. Every single month, we have a special group of people called our Rock Solid Partners, and every month they support us on different levels, and for that, they get things that nobody else gets. We have special premiums for our Rock Solid Partners. Would you please stand with us financially? And here's how you can do it.
When you stand with Marriage Today, your individual effort multiplies with other like-minded partners. And together, we can rebuild the dream of marriage for couples around the world. Being a Rock Solid Partner with Marriage Today grants you immediate access to an exclusive library of the ministry's resources and intimately connects you with our mission of helping couples succeed in marriage.
That's really why we became Rock Solid Partners, just because there was so much available to help us to help other marriages heal the way that we have.
That's why we're tied into the ministry. We want to be able to bless and give so they can keep doing what they're doing.
You're guaranteed if you listen to any of the resources, you read the resources, you come to a conference, you will be changed.
Everyone has something to give, and there are millions of unreached couples who desperately need the marriage-strengthening resources of Marriage Today. That's why we need you to join us. Become a rock-solid partner with the ministry and mission of Marriage Today.
We're talking about the laws. There are 4 foundational laws of marriage found in Genesis 2:24 and 25. And the laws that we're talking about today is, first of all, the law of possession, when it says that they two shall become one, which means we share everything in marriage. And the last law, it says the man and his wife are both naked and unafraid. That word naked means exposed, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Adam and Eve could share anything without fear because sin had not come into the garden. And once it did, they couldn't do that. So we're going to leave by just saying 2 things related to these. The first is, related to the law of possession, you never act without your spouse's approval. And this is one of the things that we do. The other one concerning the law of purity is you let each other complain without paying a price. Is if what I'm doing is bothering you, you can complain. Let me go back to making decisions together. I was dominant, but today, Karen, all decisions we make together. And I want you to talk from just a female perspective of how that makes you feel.
Oh, it's tremendous. I mean, I can remember how I felt before and how I did shut down, and I just would become this wall that you talk to, and I just thought, he's just going to tell me what to do all the time. So, and I remember that it took time though, and once I could see that you really meant it, and that you really did validate and care what I had to say, and that you really wanted me a part of the process. It did. I began to heal inside as well as outside, and I was able to, even be more intimate with you about things that I had never told you about before. And so, it brings a lot of healing, and I think that on both sides, whether it's been the man or the woman that's been, more mean or hurtful.
Women or men can dominate.
And just to know that, there's still hope, and that through trust and faith and what God can do, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's what, we live in a society, everything's so quick, and it doesn't happen overnight, it takes time. But as time goes on, and especially for us, I could see that was your heart. It really was to be different.
Well, thank God that God created marriage to succeed and that there are universal laws. It's not luck, it's not fate. It's not one person met their soulmate, so they're better off than you. When people follow the laws, they thrive. When they break them, they hurt. You can succeed in marriage. Follow the laws of marriage. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. Support Marriage Today with your best gift and receive the series Marriage on the Rock. Don't miss the XO Houston Marriage Conference with Jimmy and Karen Evans, July 10th and 11th at Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas. Register online at xohouston.com. Learn how to successfully date and marry the right person with the life-changing book, The Right One. Small group curriculum is available as well. Visit rightonebook.com. Become a rock-solid partner today and connect with the mission of Marriage Today. Together, we can help couples succeed in marriage.
This program is made possible by the generous support of our faithful partners.